Hello everybody, welcome to Coffee Break. This time we will be looking into all the ways you can handle a click on a button in Uno platform and WinUI. Here I have a very simple page which contains 4 buttons, and each of those buttons handles its click differently. The most simplistic approach to handle a click event is to use a method in the code behind. So in this case, this button is using a click event, and then it's handled by button click method, which is found in the code behind. So if I go to definition, you can see the handler here. If I launch this, you can see that when I click the button, the content dialog is shown, and I can close it like this. So this is a very simple handling of a click on a button. Better or more advanced approach comes in the form of a command. Commands are kind of encapsulations of event handlers, and they come from the MVVM pattern, which is model, view, view model pattern. So in this case, I have a command on the button, and I data bind it to a click command property on the view model. This click command property is actually a property that has the type of iCommand, and specifically it's implemented using async relay command. This type comes from Community Toolkit MVVM package, which is a MVVM framework which I'm using. It's provided by Microsoft, but there are many other implementations and many other MVVM frameworks that you can use. So this is just one of the options that you can utilize. And this async relay command class is very useful because it also allows you to encapsulate an asynchronous event handler. So in this case, I have show dialog async method, which is an asynchronous method which first creates an artificial delay of 1 second and then displays a content dialog. The great thing about this, as compared to using just a plain click handler, is that when I click the button, it will disable itself and prevent the user from clicking it multiple times, which is especially useful when your users are impatient and are prone to clicking and not wanting to wait. So if I click the button is disabled for 1 second, and then the content dialog is showing, and then I can close it and the button will enable itself again. So this is very crucial, especially if you're performing some kind of long-running operation, or if you are performing something that could cause race conditions or could actually crash if you invoke it multiple times, which is an example of content dialog which will crash if you try to show 2 content dialogs at once. So for example, if I click on this button twice in quick succession, you can see that the application crashes because we are trying to display a dialog while another one is already showing up. So by using a command instead, will prevent this scenario, because the button will become disabled and the user will not be able to click again. There are 2 more ways, or one more way, which has 2 different options to display or handle a click, and specifically it's using Xbind. Xbind allows you to bind a method to an event. So specifically here I have a click event, and I'm binding using Xbind to toArgClick method in the view model. And the toArgClick method is actually a method with 2 parameters, which is basically the same thing as we have seen in the code behind, where we have an object sender and routed event args. And in this case, I have 2 parameters as well. And the cool thing is that the parameters don't have to be exactly matching the type of the parameters that the event expects. It can be just object, for example, and it will still work. But otherwise, it's just the same as in the same way, the simple event handler. So you can see there is an await that calls the same method of showing dialog. And because it's just an event handler, it will not wait for the execution of the dialog to finish. So if I click the button will not disable itself. It could be clicked twice, as we saw before. It crashed the application. Then there is one more variation of this approach, which allows you to Xbind to a method without any parameters at all. So in this case, this method is completely parameterless, and I can use Xbind to attach it to the click event. So the same way it works, the same way it displays the content dialog, but in this case, you don't have any parameters provided. You would think maybe that you could use a hybrid approach of using just one argument, but that's not even possible. So if you try to use one arc click like this, it will not allow you to do that. So if I put that method here, we can see that the compilation will fail like this. So you can either use the same number of parameters that the event has, or you can use parameterless method, but nothing in between. So related to this concept of click handlers is also click modes of a button. And a button in WinUI and Uno platform has multiple click modes, which you can set in this manner. There is a click mode property, and the default is release. Whereas the button will be clicked when you release the mouse button or when you release your finger if you're using touch. So in this case, if I click the button and hold the mouse clicked, you can see it's not executed, but if I release it, it will take 1 second and then show the content dialog. The other option is press, which means that the button will execute its click or its command once you press it. So if I click, it will already show the content dialog after 1 second delay that's there artificially. And the final mode that you can use is hover, which means that the button will click itself once you hover the mouse over it. So if I just go there with my mouse, it will click itself and show the content dialog. So those are 3 different modes which you can mix and match with all the ways of attaching a click handler to a button. So using these approaches, you can really fine-tune how you handle your click events and how you click your buttons. So in summary, from these 4 options, I would say the command option is the most efficient if you want to handle asynchronous, longer running operations to prevent the user from clicking and triggering that operation multiple times in succession. And if you are performing only synchronous operations, then you can choose any of these 4 options. However, I would say using Xbind to event is most efficient because it keeps your code behind clean. You don't have to have any code behind method for the event handler, and you can put your method directly in your view model, which is kind of nice. Thank you for joining today's coffee break. I hope you learned something new. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe because I will be publishing more of these videos soon. In the meantime, keep coding and have a great day.